Hey guys, this is Brian from Fantasy Labs. Thanks for watching. Uh, I am going to do a video that I did last week, and it was pretty well received. So I'm going to do it again and like it again, so I can keep on doing it for the rest of the season. And pretty much, so I'm just going to go over the lines from where they opened. These are the Vegas lines from where they opened to where they are now, and I'll quickly go through them. This video shouldn't be too long. And we'll kind of give you my thoughts on the big changes and some of the ones for Sunday and Monday. So starting off the Bills Titans, this one is kind of crazy. This one dove down 3 points from the over under from the opening, and it actually changed. So Bills were at -3, and it actually moved all the way to Titans -1. So that's a pretty significant change. Obviously, the Bills were getting the majority of the bets, which makes this even crazier because we talked about this reverse line trends, and if the Bills were getting the majority of the bets, we would expect that the line would move the other way because they equal amount of money on both sides, so they can not be susceptible to losing on either side, and also get the juice in the middle. So interesting that they would get such a high percentage of bets, yet the line would move so much. So this is something that I'm really monitoring. Honestly, it probably takes me off the Bills altogether. So I'm probably going to fade Bills, just about all of them. I was probably off most of them anyway, but no thank you for any of those. I am completely off now. Bears and Chiefs, this one's moved down a couple points, but it hasn't really affected the spread. The Chiefs stay at 10, and it's pretty much even money on both sides. So it's just kind of each moved down a point. Nothing too crazy here, just a little less scoring. I don't think it affects Jamal Charles or if you're on any of those guys. I don't think that really matters, and I think you should continue to be on them. Nothing really there. Browns Ravens actually moved down a point as well. We got a lot of lines that moved down this week, which is interesting. But the spread moved up a little bit actually. The spread percentage is about even. So it's just a little bit of people who probably a little more money on the Ravens, so it just moved up slightly. The Jags and the Bucks have moved down one, and the Bucks have actually moved down just a half a point in the spread, and that just makes sense because people were a little more on the Jaguars, and they probably just moved it down half a point as a result. So I don't think there's anything too crazy here. Again, this is kind of a low over/under to start with, so if you're on Jags and Bucks, good for you. I'm probably off most of them, but I don't think anything about the line would change any of that. Saints Eagles is moved up a little bit, so it's moved up a point and a half. So a lot of these games have moved down. So interestingly enough, I think just maybe one or two have actually moved up, and it's on kind of on the Eagles side mostly. So the Eagles have moved to 6-point favorites, even though the Saints have gotten the majority of the bets, even though it's not crazy significant. So this is another reverse line trend. So probably some large money. Probably the sharps are on the Eagles here. And then you can see the implied points is the same. So probably puts me a little more on the Eagles than the Saints. I know that Drew Brees is going to be a little more popular, so that might be something that I think about in GPPs, where maybe I limit my exposure a little more than I was going to have with a Brees Cook stack or whatever it may be. Moving on, Seahawks Bengals has moved down one. In the over/under, the Bengals have actually moved up to -3, and it kind of makes sense because they're getting. I mean, it's pretty close, but they're getting the majority. So I don't think anything really has changed here too much. Rams and Packers has moved down 2 points actually, so it's fairly significant, even though the spread hasn't moved at all. So Packers are still -10. Packers are getting a little bit more of the bet, so I think it's just one on each side. So I think, I wouldn't put too much stock into that. I think that they were one of the highest over-unders, and now they're kind of in the mid, but it's kind of moved down on both sides. So it's not like I think people more just about the over/under as opposed to the to which team. So I don't think that's going to really move my decisions either way. Redskins, Falcons have moved up a half point, and the Falcons have actually moved down a half point in the spread, despite getting the majority of the bets. So this is another reverse line trend, even though it's pretty small. They've only moved down a half. So apparently, people may be worried about or at least the sharps are maybe worried about Julio Jones and his injury. I know he's questionable right now, and the Falcons are pretty good run defense, even though a lot of people are on Devonta Freeman. So perhaps the Sharps think that this game is going to be a little bit closer than the public does, and that could be the case. So I am already on board with fading Devonta Freeman. I've kind of made that clear in a bunch of other videos and articles, but Julio is the one that I'm gonna have to monitor before tomorrow morning, because he's obviously the questionable one that could affect this line a lot. A couple more. Cardinals Lions has stayed the same altogether. Interesting thing though is that the Cardinals have gotten a ton of the action on their side, and it hasn't budged. So I would assume that some people are on the Lions. I'm not sure if that's just from last week, people thinking that Cardinals are a little more susceptible to a loss, and the Lions are maybe a little bit better. I'm not sure if that was because of the Seahawks offensive line, or the Lions actually showed some signs of life. But I'm not going to take too much this. I think this is interesting, but I kind of disagree with it, so I'm not gonna worry about it too much. Broncos and Raiders has stayed the same as well. Broncos have just moved down a point, even though they've gotten yet again another reverse line trend. So apparently people are a little more on the Raiders, and I think that this probably has to do with the questionable status of Demaryius Thomas, kind of like the Julio Jones thing. So I think the Sharps, anytime they see something questionable and they can get a line, they will do that. So I would expect that this is something to monitor. I wouldn't panic if you were on the Broncos or anything. I think I would just monitor closely on Sunday morning to see the status, because I think it might move back up if Demaryius is indeed going to play. Patriots at Cowboys has moved up just a half point. Patriots have moved up a full point and got the majority of the bet. So this just kind of makes sense. The Patriots are on, the public is on the Patriots like crazy. And I think they kind of should be. The Patriots are coming off a bye, get 2 weeks to prepare for Brandon Weeden. So I think that this could get ugly, and the public agrees. So a lot of people are going to be on the Patriots. They're going to be highly owned. So keep that in mind. 49ers at Giants stayed the same. Giants just moved down a half point in the spread, even though getting the majority of the bet. So reverse line trend, even though it's fairly small. Nothing to sway me really here either way. It's kind of a low implied point total for both teams. So I'm not scared off the Giants if you want to go Odell or whatever. I don't think that changes much for me. And then the last game, Steelers-Chargers, has moved up a full point in over-under, even though the Chargers have stayed the same. So just kind of a little more scoring. If you like the Steelers, I think Le'Veon Bell is still a good play. I love Keenan Allen this week, and I think that maybe the increased over-under solidifies that for me. But nothing to move me off either way, even though that the line hasn't moved as far as the spread. So those are my thoughts. Thanks for watching it. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll do this again next week.